They fired me to save my own sister, without knowing I secretly owned the entire company they worked for. 3 people stood behind my firing: my sister, my boss, and my so-called best friend. They smiled as they stripped me of my ID badge, like I was some trash to be thrown out. I didn't say a word. I just stared at them, holding back a grin, because what they didn't know was that they had just fired their real owner. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or mocked, this story will hit you hard. Like, share, and subscribe, because this revenge will leave you speechless. 6 months ago, I was just Mike, the guy in IT who fixed broken printers and got no respect. People used to forget I was in the room, even when I was the one keeping the company alive. My sister Ashley joined the company through me. I pulled strings, got her hired, and trained her myself. But the moment she got close to the CEO's son, everything changed. Suddenly, I was being left out of meetings. Emails got accidentally lost. Projects I started were handed off to other teams. Then came the final blow: a fake complaint filed by Ashley claiming I had misused company data. The HR manager, who I later found out was her friend from college, handed me a termination letter with a fake smile. "Mike, you understand. It's for the good of the company. It's not personal." Not personal? She was my sister, and she just cost me everything I'd built. Or so they thought. Because while they were busy playing office politics, I had built something bigger. 5 years ago, I started a silent venture with a shell company, using my tech skills to develop cybersecurity tools. That shell company? It slowly started acquiring shares of this very company. I kept everything hidden behind proxies and business names. No one knew. Not even Ashley. And just a week before they fired me, I signed the final deal. The shell company officially owned 72% of their firm, but I stayed quiet. I wanted to see who would stab me first. And she did, right in the back. So I walked out that day like a loser, with everyone watching me, whispering behind my back. But I wasn't done. Not even close. 2 days after they fired me, they threw a massive party at the office, celebrating new leadership. Ashley walked in wearing a $4,000 dress like she owned the place. My ex-best friend Todd stood beside her, holding champagne, like he hadn't just stabbed me in the back. They were laughing, toasting, talking about new beginnings. But what they didn't know was that I had already scheduled a mandatory board meeting for that evening, under my real name. At exactly 7:00 p.m., every senior executive received an alert. Emergency ownership review. Attendance required. Ashley was confused. "Why is the board calling a meeting without consulting me?" Todd said, "Maybe it's about your promotion. You're about to be officially named CTO." She smiled. But that smile wouldn't last. The boardroom was silent when I walked in. Ashley's jaw dropped. Todd's glass nearly slipped from his hand. The CEO, our uncle, squinted and asked, "Mike, what the hell are you doing here?" I calmly took the seat at the head of the table. Then I slid a file across to the board's lawyer. "These are the ownership documents. You might want to read them out loud." The lawyer looked confused, until he flipped through the file. Then his eyes widened. "This can't be right. This document shows that a holding company named Cynet Global now holds majority shares of the firm." He turned toward me. "And according to these records, you are Cynet's sole owner?" The room went dead silent. Ashley whispered, "This is a joke, right? He's just an IT guy." I looked at her and said, "Correction, I was your IT guy. Now I'm the reason your paycheck exists." Everyone was frozen. The board members began whispering among themselves. The CEO stood up, angry. "You manipulated us. You went behind our backs." I leaned forward. "No, I played the same game you taught me. You just never thought the loser in IT could beat you at it." Ashley's face turned pale. Todd couldn't stop blinking. The CEO, our uncle, stood, frozen like someone had unplugged his brain. I sat there calmly, letting the silence do the damage. Every second that passed was a reminder. They had just handed power to the one person they tried to destroy. One of the board members, Mr. Clark, cleared his throat. "Mike, are you telling us you've been acquiring shares behind the scenes? All this time?" I nodded. 5 years of silence. While you mocked me, overlooked me, and pushed me aside, I was buying the company one piece at a time. Ashley slammed her hand on the table. "This is insane. You were just a background guy. You didn't even have the guts to speak up in meetings. How could you do all this?" I looked straight at her. "Because I didn't waste time playing office games. While you were chasing titles, I was building an empire." The board lawyer confirmed everything. Legal, valid, irreversible. And then, I dropped the second bomb. "I'm not here to just own the company. I'm here to make changes. Effective immediately, the following executives are being removed from their positions due to unethical conduct." I slid another folder across the table. Inside were records, emails, transactions, manipulated reports. Ashley's name was on the top. She snatched the folder, flipped through it in panic, and shouted, "You're doing this because you're jealous, because I got ahead." "No," I said, standing up slowly. "I'm doing this because you betrayed me, and because you're a liability to this company." Todd jumped in, sweating. "Mike, we're friends. Come on, man, don't do this." I turned to him, my voice calm but sharp. "Friends don't sell each other out for a quick promotion. You could have walked away. Instead, you joined them." He didn't say another word. The board had no choice. My ownership percentage gave me full voting power. Within minutes, I had them removed from their positions, but I wasn't done. I reached into my folder and pulled out 3 letters, sealed. I handed one to Ashley, one to Todd, and one to my uncle. "Consider these your final paychecks. Severance included. You're officially out." Ashley's voice cracked. "You can't do this. You can't just erase us." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You fired me to protect yourself. Now I'm just returning the favor." I walked out of that boardroom with every eye following me. But as I reached the door, I paused and said one last thing. "Oh, and that company retreat next month in Bali? Still happening, just without you." But what they did next changed everything. I thought it was over. I thought firing them would be the end of it. But I had no idea how far they were willing to go to destroy me. 3 days later, I started receiving strange calls. No one spoke, just silence on the other end. Then emails started arriving, anonymous threats, fake lawsuits, ridiculous claims about company fraud. At first, I ignored them, thought it was just noise. But then, someone broke into my condo. Nothing was stolen, but my laptop was open. Files had been accessed. It was a message. I checked the security footage. Someone had used my old keycard. The same one I'd used back when I was just the IT guy. Only 2 people still had access to that keycard system, Ashley and Todd. I knew they were behind it, but what I didn't know was how desperate they had become. I found out later that after I fired them, Ashley tried to launch her own tech firm using stolen files from the company. But when investors did a background check, they found the scandal. No one wanted to touch her. She was blacklisted. And Todd? He went crawling back to a competitor begging for a job. But somehow, every company already knew about what he did. They thought I had leaked it. But I hadn't said a word. They were falling, crashing hard, and they blamed me for all of it. So they came up with one final plan. A plan to take me down completely. It happened at the company's annual shareholder meeting. My first one as majority owner. Everything was perfect. The presentation, the numbers. Profits had soared since I took over. But just as I stepped onto the stage, someone shouted from the back, "Mike, Williams is a fraud. He stole this company." It was Ashley. In the middle of hundreds of shareholders, board members, and press, she walked up holding a thick file in her hand. "This," she said, waving the file, "proves that Mike's holding company used stolen software and fake shell companies. He doesn't own this firm legally." The room went quiet. Everyone turned toward me. A single mistake, and I could lose everything. My reputation, my company, everything I built. The moderator turned to me and said, "Mr. Williams, do you have a response?" I walked to the mic, calm, cold. Then I smiled. "Yes," I said. "I was hoping you'd show up today, Ashley, because I brought something too." Pulled out my folder. Inside it were recorded calls, emails, and bank transfers, showing how Ashley had bribed a former employee to fake documents. I had let it happen. I let her walk straight into the trap. Because weeks ago, I had planted a fake file in the system, labeled Ownership Vulnerability. She took the bait. I played a short audio clip. Her voice was crystal clear. "If we leak this, it'll ruin him. Doesn't matter if it's real. By the time he proves it's fake, the damage will be done." Gasps filled the room. The moderator stood in shock. One board member whispered, "Oh my God." I turned back to Ashley and said, "You taught me how to play dirty. I just got better at it." Security escorted her out. The audience applauded, and I looked out at them and said, "This company was built on silence, betrayal, and politics. But from today forward, it will stand for something better." But just as I thought the game was over, a letter arrived at my desk the next morning, from someone I hadn't heard from in 15 years. The envelope had no name, just my office address, and a gold-embossed seal I hadn't seen in over a decade. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single handwritten note. "We know who really funded Cynet Global. You're not the only ghost in this story. Let's meet." My heart stopped. There was only one person who ever signed their name like that. Daniel Carter, my ex-business partner, the man I thought had died in a car crash 15 years ago. But if he was alive, that meant everything I built wasn't just mine. See, back when I started Cynet, Daniel and I were nobodies. Two broke tech nerds working out of a storage unit, coding day and night. He was brilliant, but unstable, greedy. The kind of guy who wanted shortcuts instead of strategy. He wanted us to sell our code to a foreign investor, one with serious red flags. I refused. And then, the accident happened. His car went off a bridge, body never found. I moved on. Built Cynet alone, or so I thought. I followed the instructions in the letter. An empty warehouse on the edge of the city. Midnight. When I arrived, he was already there. Same smirk, same leather jacket, like he hadn't vanished off the face of the earth. "Long time, Mike," he said, stepping out from the shadows. "I thought you were dead," I replied. He laughed. "Almost. But watching you take the company solo, that gave me a reason to come back." Then he pulled out a flash drive and tossed it toward me. "What's this?" I asked. "Proof that your entire shell company was seed funded through an account I set up, which means, legally, I own 49% of Cynet." My stomach twisted. "That's not possible. You were gone. You signed over everything before—" "I forged the signature," he interrupted, grinning. "And now I want in. Half the profits, half the power, or I leak everything. The board, the media, Your investors, everyone. It felt like the floor dropped beneath me. I had just taken down my enemies, exposed betrayal, rebuilt my name from dust. And now, the ghost of my past had returned to reclaim half my empire. I stared at him, calm. Then I smiled. You didn't come back for power. You came back because you're broke. His grin faded. You wouldn't have waited 15 years if you were doing well. You've got nothing. That flash drive is a bluff. He stepped forward, voice low. Want to bet? I handed him a folder. I already knew you were alive. I've been tracking the offshore account you used to fund Cynet, and I bought it 6 months ago. His eyes widened. You used a dead man's account, and I used it to bury you legally. You don't own 49% of anything. You're just a ghost. Security lights flickered on. My private legal team walked in. Daniel backed away. You set me up. No, I said. I finished the story you tried to erase. As he was escorted out, I stood there, breathing deeply. I had no family left, no friends from the old world. But I had peace, and that was priceless. Back at my office, I hung a new frame on the wall. It said, "They fired me, but I owned everything they worked for." Underneath it, I added another line, and when the ghost came back, I buried them too. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud, it's just permanent.